Reddit. What did you do to help a complete stranger thinking you were cool only to realize later that it was actually moronic? I'll start. This happened just a few days ago. I walked into a public restroom and a guy had just finished peeing. I absentmindedly held the door open for him, not considering that he should wash his hands. He hesitated for a bit and reluctantly walked towards the exit. I then realized that he may have wanted to wash his hands, so I again absentmindedly exclaim, "Are you going to wash your hands?" He is obviously embarrassed and makes his way back towards the sink. Needless to say, I felt like a dong. Helped an old, blind man who was having difficulties crossing the street and couldn't find the bus stop heading east. After I, self-satisfied in my random act of kindness for the day, got back in my car and drove off, I realized I'd escorted him to the bus stop heading west. My friend last summer got asked to take care of an old lady down the block. The old lady's daughter told my friend that the job was easy because she only had to heat up a TV dinner and make sure she took her medications, which were all near the microwave. When the day came, she went exactly at the time the old lady's daughter had told her. When she got to the house, she tried to pull the door open but it was locked. So, she decided to enter through the back door. She finally walked in and by that time it was already time for my friend to make lunch for the old lady, so she went straight to the kitchen and asked the old lady on the couch what she wanted for lunch. The old lady looked back, stood up and approached my friend and said, I don't know. Whatever you want to make." After a few minutes my friend could not find the medication or the TV dinners. The old lady asked her, "Why are you here?" My friend responded, "Your daughter sent me to take care of you while she works." And the old lady responded, "Well, I work and can definitively feed myself, but Jenny's mom next door does need your help." My friend apologized full of embarrassment. That's hilarious that the first lady just went with it. Saw a guy on the side of the road with his flashes on and he was standing next to his truck. We thought he was changing a tire and pulled over and asked, "Do you need a hand with that?" Right as the last word came out, realized he was P. Then said, "Never mind," and took off as fast as possible. Leaving a store. Trying to be nice, so I hold the door open for somebody that's about to go in. Gives me a strange look and continues walking down the street. I'm so awkward. If I were the person on the sidewalk, I probably would have gone into the store like that's where I was planning on going, rather than facing the awkwardness of making you realize your awkwardness. Riding home on the bus the other night, I could hear a fellow rider asking the driver for directions and which stop to get off at, etc. I didn't hear the driver respond, so I saddled up to the task and sauntered down the aisle to her seat where, as if I were a designated ambassador to the city, I asked where she was headed and if she needed help. Turns out I wasn't familiar with the area she was going to. I couldn't help with directions, and the bus driver had already answered her. I just couldn't hear that from where I'd been sitting. It looked like a cocky idiot. A cocky ambassador of the city. I held the door for a woman as she was walking toward the building. Didn't notice the postal uniform. She put the mail in the box by the door and gave me a look like, "Is he a retarded person?" That would have been better if the box was on the door, and you holding it open was blocking her access to it. Around 7 years ago when I was 13, me and my family was on holiday at a ski resort. I was a novice skier and still had trouble going up the ski lifts where you have to hold onto a handle that drags you up the slope. Going up the lift the first day, I see that a couple of girls around my age drop one of their gloves. As the good guy I am, I try to pick up the glove when I am going past it. I fail and fall down, but I think that ain't too bad. I'll just give them the glove and try the lift again. I decide to throw it to them, but instead of throwing forward, I manage to fling it to the right into a bigger ditch. In my panic, I decide to swoosh down there like a boss and get the glove. Instead, I smash right into a tree. I have to take off my skies and struggle for at least 3 minutes before I get out of the ditch. I then finally walk up to the girls who have been standing there all this time just watching and give them their glove. Then I put on my skies and get the frick out of there as fast as humanly possible. A friend of mine was at a continental breakfast, waiting in line for coffee. He poured himself a cup and saw a lady behind him was waiting as well. So instead of putting down the pot, he thought he'd be polite and hold it out for her to take. Unfortunately, Coffee pots having only one handle. He ended up just expectantly holding a scalding hot cylinder at this poor lady that stood like this, awkwardly trying to figure out what to do, before the lady said just put it down. He did. He could have just poured or offered to pour her cup. More of just awkward, but whatever. So when I was about 14, me and my 16-year-old brother were on an overnight plane ride by ourselves. I had propped my sweatshirt up against the window and used it as a pillow, and went to sleep. About halfway through the flight, it was about 2 AM, I woke up with my head on the bare window. I couldn't find my coat anywhere until I looked in the seat behind me. There was an old lady using my freaking coat as a pillow. I couldn't believe she would do that. I woke up my brother and asked him what I should do. He was peeing tired, so he just said, if it's your coat, just take it back. She stole it in the first place and went back to sleep. So for some reason I thought this was a freaking great idea. I slowly reached back and really sharply yanked the coat out from underneath the old lady's head, and a distinct thud noise could be heard from the sound of her head slamming against the wall. It was not my coat. I was boarding a roller coaster at a theme park. A black family was waiting ahead of me. They all had matching Universal Studios shirts on. The father, mother, and son were ahead of me, and for some reason, their daughter ended up behind me. So being the polite, chivalrous white man that I am, and wanting to reunite this lovely family, I turned to the little girl and asked, would you like to go ahead, so you can be with your family, not her family? Racist SAP here. So, when I was in the 6th grade, a girl in my class had appendicitis and had to be hospitalized. Everyone in the class wrote get well soon cards for her. As I was writing my card, I was thinking that I wanted to give her something more comforting than just hollow words. Instead, I wrote a whole thing on how the appendectomy was an easy and routine procedure and that there really was no reason for her to be worried about the surgery. 6 years later, she told me that she still thought of me as the only person callous enough to say that he wasn't worried whether she lived or died. Whoa, she was a drama queen. I was in 2nd grade and we were playing kickball. I was on 3rd base and a girl I was trying to impress, yes, in the 2nd grade, was playing 1st base. Someone kicked a ball and she caught it. I had just learned about high fives and how you're supposed to give them when someone does something truly awesome like catching a fly kickball. Yes, there's some incongruency here between a kid that wants to impress a girl and one that just learned what a high five was. So, after she caught it, I yelled something like Aaron, yes, and run all the way across the kickball field while the other kids, the teacher and janitor, watched in bewilderment. As I got halfway across the field, I started to realize this was a longer run than I had anticipated and I was on the cusp of starting to look foolish, but damned if I was going to stop. I accelerated to get through it more quickly. My legs were pumping as I glanced at the other kids starting to raise their hands in laughter. Gotta get through it as quickly as possible. Run, run, run. In the process of speeding things up, I got careless with my aim and hit the girl squarely in the face and gave her a bloody nose. I just stood there like, that didn't go well. Instead of helping her up, then I peed my pants and cried along with her. To this day, the other kids are probably wondering why this butt in 2nd grade thought he should bloody the nose of a teammate who made an awesome catch. I arrived home and saw some neighbors carrying a new piece of furniture to their home. It was trailing part of the wrapper and I was worried that it would get tangled in the wife's feet as she walked. So I ran up behind her and misjudged how fast they were carrying the table, grabbed hold of the wrapping material and stumbled, falling onto my knees. They carried on walking and the wrapping went taut, yanking the table backwards. It tipped and their new table hit the ground. Misjudged how fast they were carrying the table. Definitely thought you were gonna smoosh your face into her butt. A couple years ago I was a resident advisor for my university and midway through the year, I was helping some guy check in because he was moving on to camps midway through the year. Thinking myself the awesome new friendly face of my campus, I commented on his Texas shirt and said something about football. I do not know crap about football. With Division 3, I then said something like, haha, I sure hope you aren't looking forward to too many games out here. Our team blows in comparison. And then he said, actually, I transferred here for football. I wanted to die on the spot. An old couple pulled over next to me and asked for directions to Panera Bread, a restaurant. It was about 3 miles away downtown. I gave them competent, precise, street by street directions like a boss. After they pulled away, I realized that there was another Panera in the strip mall across the street. Thanks for clearing up the Panera Bread confusion. Stopped on the interstate during a 2-degree ice storm between Casey and St. Louis to help a lady in a business suit and heels change her flat tire. I was wearing sweatpants and flip-flops, comfortable while driving. Change the tire and send her on her way, refusing payment for my troubles. Head back to my still running car and realize I locked myself out. Started walking until a tow truck picked me up and helped open my car. Froze my butt off and it cost me $60. How much is karma worth? $60 apparently. Several years ago, I was skiing in Colorado when I noticed this stunning, drop-dead gorgeous girl. I'm just off the chairlift. She starts skiing and my friend and I happen to choose the same trail. About 3/4 down, her hat gets blown off her head. I try to pick it up, but miss. We arrive at the chairlift. She's looking up the slope while scratching her head. I want to help. I'm a man. I rock. I'm awesome. So I stop next to her and I let out the best frickin' pickup line in existence. If you go down the same slope, you should come across your hat. She politely thanked me, and then I went off into a corner to kill myself. Sounds like a memo out of Amnesia. When I was younger, I was on the bus with my friends. I was in grade 4 or 5. The movie Slackers was out and my best friend was laughing about the girl who played Donna on that 70s show was walked in on masturbating with a vibrator but didn't act like it was a big deal. One kid pipes up asking if he knows what the male version of masturbating is. Now I had never seen the movie, and I had no clue what masturbating was for either sex, but everyone seemed really interested in his answer. He says no. People laugh. I instantly declare that I know what it is and pull the whole "do you know what it is" to everyone else. Everyone says yes and giggles a bit. I spend the next 2 minutes on the bus ride talking about how much I liked masturbation. It's bad enough like that, but I had brought my friend in on it thinking I was trying to help him. I told everyone I've seen him do it. Years later I realize what I did. We aren't friends anymore. I wonder if he remembers? He remembers. I was at a restaurant with some friends and I felt like helping the waitress by grabbing my plate off the big tray she was carrying them in on. In my defense, it looked like her hands were full. I guess she had her own way of balancing things, because as soon as I grabbed mine, the entire tray flipped and dropped on the ground. That was pretty embarrassing. Yeah, that's pretty much the worst thing you can do to a server. It was the holiday season and I was shopping in the mall. I noticed a teddy bear at a small store and remembered that those bears were being sold in the department store. I brought the bear back to the department store and gave it to a salesperson. When I went back to the small store, I saw that they were selling the same teddy bears. TLDR. I stole a teddy bear from one store and gave it to another store in the mall. I told a man he had some dirt or something on his forehead. He gave me a disgusted look and said it's Ash Wednesday, idiot. More like Ashhole Wednesday. I said to myself 2 days later, still embarrassed. I'll definitely have a good retort prepared 2 days from now. Just you wait. Used to live in a rough part of London. Late one night I was walking home drunk after a night out and I saw 2 guys trying to bump start a car. Being a helpful guy, I gave them a hand. I pushed for about 10 minutes before I realized they were trying to steal it by rolling it away from the owner's house before starting it. My boss is a smutty nuisance of a woman, ruling our office with casual misanthropy and double entendres, neither of which are frankly my kind of thing. We don't get on too badly at work as long as I remember to laugh at her jokes, feeling a small piece of my soul breaking off each time. Anyway, I digress. I didn't realize until recently that we both happen to use the same supermarket. One night, I was in there looking at breadsticks, and a familiar growling voice appeared behind me, barking a pathetic penis joke concerning sticks and bread. I think it was like to play with a nice stick, or something like that. It was enough to make me jump, quite startled, and she moved off, cackling, her day's witching done. So, for God knows what reason, When I ran into her a week later in the same supermarket, I decided to get my own back on her. She was browsing the cold meats, her back turned, like a nice fat sausage. "Do we?" I said to her as I sidled up. My boss froze, turned around, and yep, absolutely not her. I just said this in the ear of a total stranger. We both adopted a look of sheer horror, although hers had a hint of panic mixed in as well. We fled in opposite directions, and I miraculously managed to make it out without getting manhandled by security. I am a complete freaking moron. Holy crap, I'm crying. Traveling in London, foreigners sometimes ask me for help with the train timetables. I remember in one embarrassing episode a German family with like 3 kids was running through Euston station with heaps of baggage. The father, looking tired and lost, stopped to ask me whether I knew what platform their train was departing. I checked the board for his destination and told him what I thought was the right number, and he dashed off, family in tow. Moments later I realized that I had looked at the arrivals board instead of departures. FUUUU. A train arriving from X will often be heading back to X from the same platform. Let's assume it all worked out fine. A kid in my class in grade 3 told me that his parents were considering getting a divorce. I said to him, if your parents really loved you, they wouldn't put you through that. They got divorced soon after. That should be the worst comforting phrase you can use in such a situation. Sounds heartwarming but cruel as heck. After a few days of ice and snow-covered roads, Texas, a Mustang had slid off the road and his front tire was caught over the lip of the curb. He already had several people trying to push him out, so I suggested that he take his floor mats and use them for traction on his back tires. Sure enough, he gets right out. They all thank me, and as I drive off, my Subaru drives right into the curb as well. Those same people I just helped ended up having to deadlift my car from the bull bar to get me off the curb. Texas, a Mustang had slid off the road in his front tire. For half a second, I went full retard and thought you were talking about a horse, and I was trying to work out where the tire came in. When I was in Cairo, everyone you ask for directions will help you out, despite not knowing most of the time where the place you're looking for actually is. It got really freaking annoying after a while. I saw a man outside 7-Eleven with a cup and he asked me for some change. I pulled $50 out my pocket and put it in his cup. It ended up being his cup of coffee. I was working the cash register on time and this guy in a wheelchair came through, and he told me he couldn't move his arms, so he asked me to take his wallet, pull out his debit card and swipe it for him. He also wanted me to punch in his PIN for him, and in a moment of stupidity I asked, would you like to just write it down, since we were surrounded by people and I didn't think he'd want to say it aloud. He was like, no, I'll just say it. I felt bad, especially since 2 seconds before he told me he couldn't move his arms. TLDR. Guy in a wheelchair tells me he can't move his hands, asks me to punch in his debit card PIN. I ask him if he would like to write it down instead. I saw a homeless mom begging for food with a sign at the entrance of a supermarket. I went into the store and carefully selected a few healthy staples, about $20 worth, along with my groceries, and then went outside and gave it to her. I can get food through the state. What I really need is money, she said. Beggars can't be choosers, but they can be douchers. I was walking up to a shopping mall when, suddenly, this kid runs full sprint out the doors, almost knocking me over. Then 2 security guys blast through the doors full sprint, chasing after him and screaming into their walkies. I turn to watch, hoping that the little guy makes it. I suppose I was in his shoes a few times at his age. To his credit, the kid could run. He was picking up so much speed his hat flew off his head. But, alas, he made a big mistake. In his sprint he blindly leaped over a lot divider embankment. I'd seen the other side from the freeway. No one could survive that jump uninjured. I sighed, grabbed his hat, and made my way over. There he was, bloody, with his head being held down to the hood of a cop car. I climbed down the wall and made my way over. Here's your hat, dude. It was the least I could do to cheer him up. Just then a cop yells, we got him. We found the hat. I expect that boy to grow to kill me someday. I was Los Angeles. Being in a city like that, you get asked for money all the time, like every 5 minutes. You would go freaking broke if you gave everyone money. So I just say no, I don't have money. But this one guy asks me. I said I didn't have any cash. I did. And he just said he was really hungry and needed food. I sensed his sincerity and he really did look like a good guy. But I already said I didn't have cash. So I was like, I have a credit card I can buy you something with, and he was really excited and I told him he can get whatever he wanted. So we went to this place not too far and he ordered some food. We get to the line and they don't accept credit cards. Mother sucker. The food was already there and I could tell he just really wanted some food, so I felt bad. But I was too afraid to admit I had cash and lied. Oh look, I had $100 in here all along. Silly me. So I made up a whole big thing that I will run to an ATM and get money. I was planning on just running out and then pretend like the money from my wallet was from the ATM. But he must have been worried I would have ran off or something. So he stuck around me. So then I had to actually go and withdraw money from the ATM. Which of course was not within my financial institution, so I ended up getting charged a $3.50 fee. We went back and paid for the food. I realized that fee was due to my butthole lying. I was definitely a big moron in that whole thing. If I was just honest with him up front, I would have saved us all a bunch of time. But in the end he was really happy. He literally inhaled the food like a vacuum. I was walking outside the 24H supermarket and there was an older lady behind me. There was a cart blocking her way, so I tried to swing it out of the way to be nice and ended up slamming into her in the nearly pitch black parking lot at 3 AM. I think she was pretty terrified. I just ran into the store. I heard someone say spare change. I was shocked by the generous offer and I said no thank you and kept walking. Took me a block to realize it was a homeless person, and it was not an offer. Sometimes I'm really not with it in the morning. My boss asked me to build a complicated web app that ran a custom DB query and compare it in various ways to another set of data. I didn't ask him where the second set came from. I should have. I figured the schema was identical and went from that. The data sets were the same set. I spent weeks building a tool that essentially compared something to itself and found that hey, it was the same. I just laughed when I finally found out. Saddest laughter ever. Hey, at least you got a working application. I was exiting a building and noticed a frail looking old lady behind me using a walker, heading the same way. I held the door open for her. I don't know what the frick happened, but something messed up and she ended up falling through the door frame as if she wasn't expecting it to be held open. As I scrambled to help her up, she yelled at me for a good 5 minutes about how I should only help people when they ask for it. Nice woman. Cute girl with a cigarette dangling from her perfect and shapely lips. She is obviously searching for a lighter. I say let me get that for you and go to light her cigarette. I had forgotten that I had the flame size on full from lighting a candle wick that was on the bottom of a tall, narrow jar. The flames gushed out and she literally screamed. Her perfect eyebrows weren't so perfect after that. I apologized over and over. In between grimaces of pain she noticed that I was reading City of Saints and Mad Men and commented on it. We dated for 2 years. TL. DR. Pretty girl needs a light, and I proceed to burn her face off. Then we boned. You could say there was instant chemistry. I was hanging out at a park and a bunch of guys were playing soccer. I kept noticing the ball coming to me and so I kicked it back at the guys playing. It kept happening and every time the ball came near me I kicked it back thinking I'm helping these guys from chasing after the ball. After the 3rd or 4th time this happened I realized they had 2 balls and were kicking the extra out of the way so they could start the game, which I was then interrupting. Saw a rough looking teen sat on his coat outside a bank. He was looking pretty downtrodden in his ripped jeans and shirt that looked a size too small. Initial thought of dang, poor kid, must be homeless. Coupled with his being outside a bank, money was on my mind. As such, I figured I'd be generous and handed him my change. Methinks you can see where I'm going with this. TLDR, dang hipsters. Kind of relevant, but from her perspective, I was sitting next to a cute girl on a train, and as we started to pull away from the station, she pulls out a laptop and opens it and plugs in her headphones into the microphone port. She puts on an episode of The Simpsons, and it just blares through the whole train. People are looking around to see what's going on. Because the laptop is so loud, I imagine it sounds just like it's coming through her headphones. I'm staring at her and start to make these gestures at her screen and awkwardly half tap her shoulder to get her attention. She notices and pulls a headphone out of one ear and starts to offer it to me. Would you like to watch too? I cringe and say no. You plugged your headphones into the wrong port. She glances down and just looks absolutely mortified as she realizes that everyone can hear and is looking at her. Her face flushes and her ears stay bright red for the rest of the trip. Could have been worse. She could have been watching pee. You know those dividers you see at grocery stores that you use while standing in line to separate your stuff from the person in front behind you? Well, I'm standing in line and feeling generous that day, and behind me is this really cute girl with literally just a bottle of Sprite in her hands. Without thinking, I just grabbed the divider, put it down, and nodded like you can put your stuff down now. But she only had a goddamn bottle of Sprite, thus the divider was useless. And she just stared at me like a moron. I'm not sure I understand why the divider was useless. Even if I only have one thing, I put it on the belt. That's where it goes if it's gonna get rung up. This is more awkward than moronic, but I was driving down the highway on a solo road trip. I'd just come out from an underpass when I see a pair of women on the shoulder waving their hands at cars. As I fly by them, I see the stopped car a little ways past on the side of the road. So I pull over past it on the shoulder. I get out and walk back to their car and see that there's a couple of guys working on fixing the tire. The women are still up near the road waving. The two guys pretty much ignore me as I walk up, so I ask if they could use a hand. One guy glances up, says no, and goes back to work. I stand there for another 2 seconds feeling awkward, go back, get in my car, and drive off. The ladies were just waving at traffic to be friendly. You were being a decent human being and he was being a douche. The fact of the matter is that you went out of your way to help, and here's a dictation. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.